I know. I messed up. I wasn't recording. Are you recording?
I'm recording now.
All right.
I'm
I'll
good.
play that. So if those are watching the
I
live
was
stream,
just
you're like, what just happened?
I was just assuming the bumper music wasn't playing. I was prepared for it.
No, 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 no. I'll get the bumper and then we'll do it. So, all righty.
It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
It is the Dev Friday show. We are just as prepared as normal, which means we're not prepared at all. And for those of you who catch this on the live stream, you'll know that somehow I think Restream changed the way that they do these things, because what in the world? For some reason, the video just stays on there. I don't know how to get rid of it. But anyway, no prep, no nothing. I forgot to hit record. And then yeah. So it's a normal day.
We are always a beautiful example of how to run a podcast.
That's right. I think they should probably.
You know what we should do, Tim? We should create online courses on how to do a podcast. I think we have enough experience, enough proficiency.
Yeah.
Maybe enough listeners.
Probably not, but yeah, we don't know though. I mean,
I think we can make a little bit of money there.
Maybe, because I get emails now. I don't know why I get emails now, but I get emails from people that are like, "Hey, figure out how to monetize your podcast or do this thing." I don't exactly know what they're looking for or why they're targeting me. It doesn't make much sense to me, but they are. So
yeah.
Anyway, we get this feels like more of a normal show because we kind of showed up together less than a minute before the show started, which feels right. I'm not.
And I will speak for our many listeners.
Okay. Our many listeners, yes.
That I'm grateful.
You are the voice of the listener.
That you decide to come back to the Dev Friday show after gaining new popularity and fame on the PHP Developers Roundtable podcast.
I was on the roundtable years ago, actually, and I don't know. Do I reference? I don't know. I'd have to watch the video from the tech keynote. I don't know if I referenced that, but it was. I kind of allude to it because it was a roundtable on contract development, being a contractor, right, and the different philosophies. And I had done a couple of presentations on how I view contracting and how I bill hourly and what that model looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had some others on that did the value-based pricing, and I think you're familiar with that, right, Mark?
How much value can provide? It's infinite.
Well, infinite. But that's the thing. Finding a company,
priceless.
Finding a company that it's like, oh, if this thing existed, it would mean this to us. It would be worth thousands of dollars, or tens of thousands of dollars, or whatever. So when you come in and you're like, well, I'm going to bid $5,000. I'm going to bid $10,000 to do it for you. They're like, yeah, that's completely fine, because if it's successful, that will we know the value of that is far more than what you're saying. But then if you look at the time, you're like, but the time I'm putting in is far less than what my hourly rate would be. So everybody's happy here. I can do a fixed bid because it's way over what my hourly rate would be. And you're okay with that quote because you know that if this thing actually, if I make this Facebook game for a marketing thing, we know that you're going to get this many leads, this many people, whatever. So that, I was on with a couple people talking about value-based contract versus hourly contracting. So,
which is interesting. That can definitely vary between clients too. You have an easier time selling a value-based
for
quote
sure.
If it's a better client.
You're not working for startups, right? Because startups are like, hey, we don't know what the value is here. And at that point in time, I was doing a lot of that type of prototype development for either startups or companies that were behaving in at least whatever they were doing. They were behaving like a startup, right? Like, hey, this is a new idea. Let's just test it out. So that's why I went with hourly, because it made it really easy to start a project, stop a project. If we found out early it wasn't going to work, there wasn't like how much of the contract should we pay? Nope. We were just billing hours. So it worked for me, but somebody else could have a different perspective. And I use that as a tool in my talk on letting go of the ownership perspective, to talk about how, yes, changing your perspective about something can enable you to do something different.
Mm-hmm. So it was interesting, and I did listen to the podcast episode.
You listened to the roundtable episode,
yes, and I don't want
to even talk about PHP,
and I don't want to. Well, that we'll talk about that, yes, because
we'll talk about that. Wait, okay.
because I was curious because you alluded to the fact that you were going to be on the show last Friday. So I was like, okay.
Yep,
So I think it was, and actually I'll give Eric some props. He released the show on Saturday.
Yeah.
That's when I was walking my dog. I checked out my podcast app and it was like, whoa, it was there. I was like, okay. I was pretty impressed with that. Just the turnaround time. But I was also interested in the fact of like, you had a few interesting guests who I brought back memories.
Oh, because you Cal, yeah.
Because Uncle Cal, which I haven't heard from him in many, many years. And also Sarah, I think Sarah Goldman, right? That's her name.
Yeah.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just make sure I have the right Sarah here. I believe it is. Sarah, she did some work on the core. She was a core PHP maintainer.
All right.
Am I thinking about another? Or if I'm getting to Sarah's.
No,
okay.
I believe. Like I know she's involved in core. I don't get that close to that group to know exactly who's what. But Sarah maintained Hack. She was one of the principal developers at Hackline when it was at Facebook.
Did she work at Facebook?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
because I remember I remember hearing, I don't know if she had her own podcast back in the day, but back when I was getting into PHP back in the Zen framework days, going from ASP.NET to the Zen framework, which I thought was a nice, smooth transition. Going from one enterprise framework to the next, but in the PHP world. And I listened to a lot of Uncle Carl's podcast because he was the primary Zen framework.
I think you mean Uncle Cal. I can't let that one go.
Uncle Carl. I have an Uncle Carl.
I have an Uncle Carl. You have an Uncle Carl. Okay. Does he have a podcast?
He does not.
No. Should he have a podcast?
I don't think so.
You know what?
Be very well. He may. He's actually
sell him an ebook on how to start a podcast.
He's one of those crazy guys, crazy uncles on a podcast. He'd actually be pretty entertaining. So,
okay.
I think he'd make probably less sense than we do, but it might be entertaining. But Uncle Cal. Sorry, now you got me thinking about Carl.
I know, right?
I'm all messed up now. But Uncle Cal, he was the primary evangelist for the Zen framework.
Yep. And he mentioned that on the roundtable.
As I was learning the Zen framework, it was interesting. Just, his podcast was a great resource to kind of hear. I mean, he's a great speaker, very easy to listen to. Nice quality sound in his voice.
Yeah.
And very knowledgeable in about the PHP world and about back in the day Zen framework. So I haven't really seen too much from him, and also he wrote a good number of articles too. I remember his articles and using them as resources. And I found Sarah on a couple of podcasts too, maybe on the Zen framework at the time, or I don't know. But Sarah was also really great for writing PHP articles. And I remember reading a bunch of her articles back in the day. So it was fun to listen to that. This is the podcast, and I did check in on the YouTube stream just because I was curious at the end to kind of see how everybody was how it was presented, trying to compare it to our podcast. But it was kind of fun hearing and watching you guys.
Yeah, it was a good panel. There were a lot of some people I had not met before, but my work has met. I think James there from Vonage, or I guess are they Ericsson? I don't even know who they are anymore, but he taken over the maintenance of some of the code that I wrote back in Exmo. Obviously seeing Keith and Cal again is great.
My only comment or my only critique, because I do love critiquing.
Sure,
because I do that on a daily basis in my classes.
Is this a critique for me or is this a critique for Eric's podcast?
Oh, well, of course I have to critique Eric's podcast because he thinks our podcast is awful. So I have to.
He has said that. He has said it's awful. So.
No, because it was interesting because seeing the names of all of these very experienced PHP developers, professionals, I was expecting a little bit more PHP talk, but I know that Eric, his intention was to bring all of these professionals together from the PHP world because their experiences in developer relations or developer evangelism, and they kind of just sort of hear some of the war stories that everybody has, being in that world, which it seemed like throughout the podcast, it was kind of interesting, especially for me of never being a developer evangelist. Even though I feel like I am, as a teacher, you're somewhat of an evangelist of what you teach and what you believe in. But being a developer relations or developer evangelist for a specific technology or company, never had that role before. So listening to it was kind of a little bit like insider baseball type things where I was like, okay, it's kind of interesting, but at the same time, I'd rather just hear some more kind of like your views on PHP. And I don't know, maybe that's also because I'm not an active PHP developer now. So it was kind of like wanting to hear a little bit more about what's current and stuff like that. But I know that wasn't the intent of the roundtable. So.
Right. But you would have left some PHP hot takes there at the end.
Yeah, it would have been nice. Yes.
Yeah, because whatever we can do to add to the PHP drama, that'd be good. That'd be good. So
it's because that's the thing you always come back for.
yeah, I'll pass that on to Eric. I'll pass that on to Eric by
Well,
linking,
you could listen to
this.
his ugly podcast if you want to. I guess if you want to hear the hot takes on a weekly basis, you can go to the.
Those takes are super hot.
Go to the ugly podcast yeah.
But I'll send him a link to this podcast when we get it online, which will be at least a week, probably at least a week.
Well, it usually takes a week or 2 weeks. That's usually our turnaround time.
For the amount of time production takes now, it's surprising that it takes me that long to do it. But yeah.
But I will, even though some people think our show is awful, which I don't disagree.
Some people.
I will say though,
I love that because as you said, some people think our show, and I'm like, who thinks anything about our show? Who is talking about our show?
There is a few.
And there is one. That
there are probably many listeners who listen one time for like 2 minutes and they're like, all right, I'm out.
That's right. Oh, you know what? You need to take a course on podcast funnels, how to get them all the way to the end of the journey.
I agree.
Yeah, there we go. So there's some people that think our podcast is awful, even though.
But I would like to say, because one thing that actually happened to me last week after our show, because we pushed the, I think we were a little bit of a behind in the schedule.
We pushed 2 or 3
and so we pushed the
the
last show last week. Well, not from last week, but
it was
from
like
previously
4 weeks before. Yeah.
And I just, usually I do is I have my Pocket Cast, my podcast app. So you just kind of check to make sure the show gets updated, just to make sure that the update was made or pushed to the podcast apps. And then I just started listening to it. And I like to say, I think we should get an award for the amount of topics that we talk about in 60 minutes is amazing. Because I did not intend to listen to the full episode, but I was totally, because I was just fascinated. I was fascinated by the fact that every 2 minutes we talked about something different.
Mark is fascinated by himself. So I haven't uploaded this one yet because we didn't have all the audio, but it's ready to go now. I'm getting AI to write the show notes and everything. But yeah, it was the third screen. This was you taking away. The one you must listen to is you getting rid of all your screens with your laptop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked. Yeah. We go through a lot of different topics.
So if people like listening to some randomness and some rambling and I think I don't know. At least I'm entertained by myself. I guess that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
You just have to love yourself.
This is basically your therapy session. So
yes, as long as you're happy, you believe in yourself, you feel good about yourself. That's the most important. So
there you
that's
go.
what this podcast gives me. So how was your week? Did you feel better? How's the health? I know we talked about your health issues.
So I will continually say the audio should be better on the podcast than the live stream, right? That said, last week, the after show, once the bumper music ended, we talked for a while about some things, didn't we?
I can't remember what we talked about.
You don't even remember?
I do remember we did talk for a bit. And then
no, we talked about health insurance benefits.
Oh yeah,
doing that as a contractor and all that. I'm right now stuck in limbo because the one urologist that saw me at the hospital doesn't have the machine that's needed to do this procedure. So anywhere else, they're like, well, we got to do a consult first. It's like, why?
Oh,
there's been a specialist who's looked at that. Assistant said, you need to look at it too. Okay, fine. Everybody needs to look at it. And it's not like check the work before, like take an x-ray just to prove it's still in the place. And no, they're going to do a consult and then the procedure will be pushed out some other time. It's like, come on, I got stuff in me right now. I want out. But we'll see. Especially since.
Well, are you still? Is it? How pain level from 1 to 10? Is it still?
Pain's pretty fine because there's nothing blocking.
But you just want to be over with, kind of be past.
Yeah,
it,
there's some different sensations with a stint in you, and sometimes there's a little pain. Nothing like what it was, when I had to go to the hospital. But it's just like, let's just get this thing done because I'm also like, I'm not supposed to. Did I tell you how I got it? How I got the stone?
No, well, we talked about. I said I shouldn't
say that.
Going through this experience, and you talked about your father, how how much of this is genetics and it's carried over to you, and but you didn't know from a diet perspective or any if anything that you did to kind of.
I don't know what. Yeah, not how I got the stone, but how this because this was the second episode. It's a couple months ago I had the first one, and that kind of, it didn't actually pass, but it freed up enough that I didn't have any more pain. I knew there's a larger one in my kidney. Our best guess is a couple of weeks ago, I was like, all right, summer's over. I'm not doing work outside like I used to. Did I say this last week? I thought,
No.
yeah, I need to hit the treadmill again.
Yeah. Okay.
Get some
Gotcha.
jogging in.
Yep.
It was the next day the pain started.
Oh, really?
So the doctors are pretty. Yeah. When I said that, the urologist was like, "Oh yeah, you probably just knocked it loose."
Interesting.
So that'll learn me for trying to get back into the swing of things when it comes to exercise. So, but no, I can't do anything.
Well,
I can't right now. They're like, no, you probably shouldn't be running, with a stent inside you.
Yeah.
So
it definitely is interesting. Yeah, over the summer, I was doing pretty good with exercise. I think I was talking about it to you, where my goal over the summer, which I did get to. I was able to run for 60 minutes. I got to 5 miles. That was my goal. So by August, I think it was by August, I did that, and I was able to keep that up for about 2 weeks, maybe like a week and a half. I was about like exercising 3 to 4 days a week. And the only thing I would do at the gym, I would just run. I would just go to the treadmill, I would run, and I would have 60 minutes. I was trying to see how far I could get. And that my goal was to get to 5 miles. And to get to that, I had to really sprint the last 10 minutes. So it was pretty intense at the end, because in order for me to run for 60 minutes, I just keep like a steady pace, fast jog, steady pace to kind of get to that point. But then what happened though, I really messed up my knees.
Oh,
I think my age kicked in, and it showed me you haven't lost enough weight yet to really do this. And you're getting a little bit too old. You have to be kind of careful about this. So I screwed up my knees, and I had to take pretty much a month off from the gym. And I slowly got back into it. Being back at school, also been a little bit busy, so I haven't been back yet. But I did go back to the gym and start running again last week or so, and I could tell, even though I did really good over the summer and was able to keep a good pace, I could barely do 30 minutes. I could feel it.
Yep.
I was like, whoa, this is interesting.
I think our listeners are like, I didn't realize I turned into the
I think
Friday with two old men.
I think that's true. Well, we have to. That is us.
World. Like, people are like, how old are these guys?
You get with us really knowledge, experience, and along with that, you have to understand we have to complain about us getting older.
How did we become this? How do we become people that are like, oh, I'm old? I don't know.
Well, the one thing I'm trying to do is by exercising, losing weight. I'm trying to see how much I can stay young in a sense. At least stay healthy. Stay healthy. Yep. You age gracefully. I guess that's the term that the seniors like to say, right?
Is that what they say? those seniors.
Once you start putting on those silver shoes, you want to make sure that you can.
Did I tell the Chicago?
Keep up
story?
A good pace.
I don't know if I told the Chicago story. We were out for team dinner. I think
at the last Peachtree Tech.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We were out at the team dinner. I think I told the story where one of the devs dropped what are the iOS? What are the Apple earbud things?
The AirPods.
He dropped one of those underneath.
Mm-hmm. You talked about that. How it was kind of this weird thing of having to put together some contraption or some type of
try to get it
or something like that to kind of
another
retrieve
guy did a parkour into the place and got it was. But we were at the restaurant and the waiter gave me my food, and I think he said, "Here you go, man," or something like that. And one of the devs on my team is like, "Did he just call you an old man?" And I was like, no, I don't think he did. And I don't think you thought he did, but I think you just called me an old man.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not actually that old. You know that, right? So I guess
I think you just have to, it's interesting how when I was, when you're young, you look at older people and it's kind of like, oh, how can they keep up? But it's interesting though, if you keep, and I think developers, if you keep developing or keeping this mindset of wanting to keep learning, keep pushing yourself,
stay relevant to
and I think it's interesting where it kind of keeps your mind engaged, where especially if you don't let yourself become just a retired manager or just kind of a cranky old manager who manages developers and who just wants to check in, put the 9 to 5 in.
Totally not me. I just want to make sure everybody knows that.
But if you kind of keep active within the community and learning about and keep growing as a developer, I feel that actually keeps you young. Right. Yeah. And also too, if I compare myself to younger developers, they might be quicker, snappier. But yes, I think we talked a lot in the past. We kind of know what things to avoid, the kind of which roads that we have trod in the past that have led to hardship or disaster, destruction, and we could try to avoid some paths. And then when we approach, solving a problem or working on a project, we can kind of do it in a little bit more of a balanced or efficient way. Right. But then there's also downside of that too, where especially with me, what I'm dealing with too, is I'm trying to like work on certain projects. I've done so many bad things in the past or just things incorrectly. Then I second guess everything I do, which is also when you're young, you don't do that. You just kind of just run, hit a wall, bounce off it, run through, try to hit the wall again. Eventually you'll break through it. But now I try to find a way around the wall or over it, or maybe find a nice clean way to cut a hole through it. But then different ways to figure that out. Yeah, I'm question myself along the way. So that's the downside about getting older, is that once you have so much experience, you're kind of like,
That's why you write code to not have to write code.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. I'm looking. Have you been tweeting lately, Mark? No?
I have not. I've been trying to keep.
Not.
I've been purposely staying off the socials because I'm trying to stay focused because my studies, like we talked about, the certifications.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to work on my projects for my portfolio. So I'm trying to trying to enable that next stage of my old career. So I've been trying to stay off the social until I can get over some humps, and then I'll probably get back, be a little bit more active. Also, I find like too, when I start going to the rat holes of the social media, I start to lead to some dark places.
So I tweeted. I forgot about this the last two shows, but I tweeted a couple times ago about a comment I got from one of the devs on the team. He was like, "You're crazy, man." And I'm like, "What?" I mean, also you're probably right. But I'm just curious as to how you came to that conclusion. And he's like, "You put a go-to in the code."
Nice. Wait, you did? Wait, you could do that still in PHP?
Oh yeah, PHP has go-tos.
Whoa, I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, you should.
I've never used a go-to in PHP.
The best part of PHP's go-tos. Oh boy, there's gonna be devs out there that are screaming at me right now.
Oh, I love going to. I just looked up go-to on.
Oh yeah.
And I came into the PHP manual. There's a little like comic strip that illustrates it.
The XKCD.
Oh my gosh! Yes. Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen one of these in a long time. Yeah, great.
But this was exactly the situation I was in. If you go to the
amazing.
go-to. If you go to the go-to page in the PHP manual, that's
just
pretty much the situation I was in. I could either restructure the entire flow of this thing, or I could use one little go-to. And that's exactly what I did.
How much code was give me more specifics. How much code was in the I guess the block of it wasn't what you're calling with the go-to.
It wasn't bad, and it wasn't a bad refactor. And this dev Josh,
I'm still gonna cry. This is so crazy.
He actually refactored. There was another reason, right? What I had to do is we were getting rate limited by an API.
Oh, okay.
So, and I had to be like, well, if we do this, I just want to retry it again. A regular error, I don't want to retry. But a rate limit, yeah, let's retry at least 5 times. So to do that, you have to kind of take the method that calls the API and put it in its own method and say you can retry, but put a try block outside of that. You only catch the rate limit exception because you need to know how many times are left in your retry. So that's probably the visibility of the method that you're kind of saying, hey, retry this and it'll be what do I want to call it, self recursively and decrement a variable that it adds as an optional parameter and say, okay, now we're done and we're done retrying, all that kind of fun stuff, right? It's not a hard refactor. The problem was we were in a situation where I was patching some things to do some one-off kind of utility work. So I was literally copying a patch file onto a server, not a production server, but like a server that could be used to run command line utilities. And I didn't want a huge code change that then I'd have to, because I couldn't really test it locally.
Did you just cowboy this and just like go right into the terminal and just open up the text file and just make the change, saved it and just...
You serious? I don't cowboy it like that. What I do is I make the change locally in my IDE. I right click and I commit it, and then I take the commit and I right click and I say make patch, and then I paste the patch file onto the server and I apply the patch.
Okay.
So
right. There you go.
Let
me see, have a few steps there.
That's just me saying that. I didn't cowboy it. I had a badge. But that's why I didn't want to restructure it, because I couldn't really test it locally. I knew
Mhm.
exactly. I mean, and then it's easy to see. Like you can see, yep, set it to 5 and decrement 5, and we'll
Mhm.
retry 5 times, and then go back and it's I'm trying to do some work to enable something for a customer. It's like I just want this to work quickly, and it is in a throwaway environment, right? Every
Mhm.
time we deploy, there's this other environment that hangs around that lets us do debugging, and so I can just patch that.
So this is brings up interesting because kind of going back to the developer roundtable, because like your role at the company is you're not an evangelist anymore, you're not a developer relations anymore, but you're more
No,
of a senior leadership position, right?
I'd actually have to puzzle around to see what my title is, but I think it's
Because
something
I'm
like
curious then, at what point
develop.
then do you jump into like doing a change like you just did, like within the team? Because you probably have, because you said like, you're probably not doing as much coding as the rest of your team because you're working on other things. So at what point do you find that you might have opportunities like this too?
It depends. Like for this particularly, it's because it's such a fluid situation, and I can't really go into the details. But like what we're trying to do here is very fluid, and I didn't want the rest of the team to get pulled in different directions. So
Oh,
like, oh,
okay.
do this.
Because it
Okay,
was a
then change
smaller
that,
kind of
and then change
side.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I just kept this thing. I'm
Side
like,
fix to do.
this keeps
Yeah.
changing, so I'm just going to keep changing it and patching and running manually.
Mhm.
And one day it'll normalize, and we can actually say, all right, now we need to build the feature properly. And
Okay.
it did.
So this was just a small fix in order for you to save a little more time till you can actually get to
Well, the
the.
go-to wasn't a small fix, but I mean, so sorry. The go-to was a small fix.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
entire thing was like, no, this has gone on for a while. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a chore that has to happen a couple times a week as we manage kind of data between a couple different external systems to us, vendor systems, right? But those things and how we do it and who we're really going to work with was highly in flux. So once we had a much better idea, I said, hey, here's a branch that I keep on rebasing against master, and now we need to bring my code, which is kind of work. We need to bring it into the code base and make it work for real. And it was me asking that question, and that led to a dev saying, "You're crazy, man," because you used a go-to, and we refactored the go-to out, but I will say it worked, and it worked just fine. So go-to, the thing that, I mean, there were people that were
Amazing.
like, "Hey, the first thing in the man page is a comic strip. I think that means you shouldn't use it."
I know it's just amazing. Yeah, I didn't even know that existed in Gote. I remember
But
that from
I
the
do want to
basic
point
days,
this
right?
out. Well, go-to is a basic thing.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the last time I used it back when I was in high school.
I think it's in other languages too.
It probably is, but I haven't used it since basic. So
But
yeah, it's
the thing
interesting.
I find fascinating is that PHP's go-to, you'd be like, oh, that's probably just because we could never get rid of it, right? No, it was introduced in PHP 5.
Yeah, I was looking at the versioning. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, how
What
long has
is
this existed?
interesting is this has constraints. PHP's go-to has constraints that are the thing that stops the Velociraptor from eating your head off, right?
Is it like a block level control?
Yeah,
Like
you
within
cannot
the
jump
context of your
yeah,
where you're
you
at?
you cannot jump
Yeah,
into
same file, same context. Yeah, that's
any
what it
loop.
says.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't jump into a loop or a switch or any type of those
Okay,
structures. You
I
can
can get
jump
that.
out of them.
I could be on board with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can jump out of them, but you can't jump into them. And
Yeah.
that's usually the problem, is like go-to then means code doesn't, when used irresponsibly, you get to a point of the program where everything that follows these lines sequentially thinks the ones on top of it have been executed, and they have, wait for it, not. So, and then you get in some really weird states. But in this particular retry, it was a really simple way to 2-line patch, and then I could just
Mhm.
get done what needed to get done. But that's my story. That's my story.
I
We
I
talked. I
I think
tweeted that at
that's a
you a
really
while
good
ago.
story. I think we're gonna have to clip this and make a little
Okay.
sub episode out
Okay.
of that.
I'm not
yeah.
sure about that. But I had sent that a while ago to you.
I
And
post
I
this
think,
all around the socials. How you promote the go-to within PHP? You are the
you know what,
go-to
do it.
guy.
I'm
The
the go-to
go-to
guy.
PHP guy.
I'm the go-to PHP guy. There you go. There you go. Well, that didn't take long.
Too bad that didn't come up in the developer roundtable podcast. The way that I build relationships with other developers is I talk about the PHP go-to.
Is that what it is?
How efficient it can be within the
to the table and
context
I'm like, here,
of your
let me
code.
show
If you stay within the same file, stay within the same context. It's very, very efficient.
I'd be like, yo, yeah, come here. I don't know. Did you know you can do a go-to in PHP? Let me show you how. Let me show you how to do a go-to.
That's amazing.
I'll be that developer that's like, oh, and you know what other things you can do in PHP, and just tell them all the bad stuff. And so I'll write a book. PHP, the parts you shouldn't use. It's like what is it? JavaScript, the good parts.
The good, yeah,
Yeah,
the good
it's
parts.
very thin book. Very thin book. Anyway,
Oh
hey,
man,
did you see Pixel 8 was released?
I've been paying attention. I've been running the Samsung FE20 version,
I
which is
can't handle the non-Google experience ones. I just
okay.
can't.
Well, let's talk about this. Yeah, because I've actually been considering. I've been actually really happy. This is actually the first one of the phones. I think there was one iPhone I felt the same way about. I can't remember which version was. Maybe around 5 or 6 or something like that. I think maybe the iPhone 6. Where like I kept it way longer. Usually I rotate my phones at least every 2 years, maybe a year and a half.
Just flip them
I'll
on the
get
other side.
yeah. Yeah, yes, exactly. I'll take them out of the case. I'll, maybe clean it, just move it around.
Put it backwards.
But yeah,
It's
it was like
magic.
usually I swap them out and get a newer version, right? Because
Right.
that's what AT&T and Verizon, they love to upsell you, saying, "Oh,
Oh,
you get a free
yeah.
phone, right?" Just
Not
just
really
do
a
that.
free phone.
Yeah,
Subsidized
I
by your
know.
contract.
You get
price,
stuck
yeah.
kind of sucked, and it's amazing too, especially if you have a family plan with like 5 lines because your mom's on it and your your
yeah.
kids and
Yeah,
your
yeah.
wife, everybody's on it, and it's a huge bill. Once you stop paying for phones on a monthly basis, it's interesting to see how low your phone bill can actually get compared to all these little $20 to $30 to $40 a month payments.
Once you stop paying the subsidy, whatever.
So I'm enjoying that right now. I'm like, whoa, I'm actually paying half of what I paid a few months ago.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know if I want to sign up for like getting another phone unless I just paid out of pocket and just paid all cash for it. But
That's what I. Well,
that's what going back to the Pixel. That's the benefit of Pixel because usually they were always cheaper. At least traditionally they were, and that's why they, back when they first came out, the great selling point there was a phone from Google. It was very vanilla, didn't have a lot of bloatware installed on it. And
that's what I can't handle with the other
OS was very vanilla, pure Android experience, but also felt like it was usually at least $100-$200 cheaper too than the kind of the phones like the Samsung or the other phones, Android phones, because it wasn't sold through. You could buy it outside of AT&T and Verizon.
I don't know that it is anymore.
Well, you can still buy it on the Play Store.
Oh, you can buy you can buy it directly. I just mean I don't know that it's
with the price. Yeah, the price is gone. Yeah, no, that whole world that's done with. But if you want to go back to, and I am tempted to say, okay, my next phone, when's it going to be? And I finally need a reason because my phone still works fine performance wise. I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
My battery, I think once my battery starts to die and it doesn't hold a charge, I think at that point, then I'll definitely, but I keep up with the phones a little bit because I want to kind of see what new phones are coming out, especially on the Android. I don't pay attention to iOS or iPhones anymore as much, even though my whole rest of my family's on iOS. I'm like the lone wolf on the Android world. But the new Pixel looks interesting, especially how they have the fix it and post AI features built right into the phone or sort of interacting with their APIs.
Yeah. So I saw it come. I saw it announced, and I'm like, I'm still running the Pixel 3.
Ooh, interesting. So you're even farther back than I am, like from a cycle perspective. Yeah,
it still works just fine.
Yeah.
And my wife's phone broke a while ago, and we went to get a new one, and we weren't ready to spring for a full-on Pixel because of cost. So we got like a much cheaper one of is it the Nords, I think? The Nord One Plus or from
the Plus, the One Plus.
Yeah. I have that.
I didn't talk about it. I got a new tablet. Yeah, well, let's finish up what you're gonna talk about because I got the new One Plus tablet we could talk about. Yeah,
we were not happy with it at all. Like we're so I don't know if it's just me being so used to, like you said, just Android. Not Android with what you think would make Android better.
Yeah.
But just Android. It just doesn't seem
to well, is it the One Plus, like, so you said Nord, is it actually the One Plus? The One Plus is the brand.
Yeah, One Plus is the brand, and then it's the Nord.
That's the one you got. Okay. Because I got the tablet. We could talk about that. And I was after I got the tablets, I have a pretty good experience with it. Yep. I was curious about their phones too, but you're saying no, stay away from.
Well, it just hasn't worked for us. It's been buggy, and the interface is a little different. And I mean, I'm just used to, and she's used to Google phones with Google experience, right? It's like just Android. Yeah. So when you throw on like your variant of the dialer, your variant of this and that, it just gets confusing. So I saw it come out. I'm like, yeah, maybe we should get this. Was looking at it. The thing that I've held off is I like the smallness, and there's no small phones anymore. Like I like phones that I can just stick in my pocket, but they're not. They're like they have to be these huge things anyway because people want big screens and all that kind of stuff. Right. So I was like, all right, we can do this. And then I saw for the 8 Pro, they were giving away a Pixel 2 watch. And I was like,
okay.
that sounds
Little
nice.
combo deal.
Yeah. So I figured out what we wanted, went to order it one night, got one, got a set with the watch that my wife wanted, but they didn't have mine in stock. But they're like, it restocks in 5 minutes. So I was like, all right, I'll go to bed. I'll check in the morning. Turns out in the morning, they weren't pre-selling it anymore. I was so annoyed. I should have just got a different free watch. If I didn't like it, sold the stupid thing.
Oh my gosh.
I was
crazy.
so annoyed. So, well, at least we'll have one watch to see what that was like. And then we got, the nice thing is when my wife and I have the same phone, there's like, it's easy to figure out what to do on the other person's phone. There's not like wait, where did that go over here? Why does this work differently? And even when you're on different versions of Android, because you're on different pixels, that can be problematic, right? Like they changed different versions of Android for different devices, changed a little bit of how some of the basic OS works with, like swipe up and to see your applications and things like that.
So it's interesting. So you did not like, was it the OS of OnePlus, like their custom Android
the whole
OS
thing, like their fingerprint on the screen, kind of unlock. It just felt a little buggy. And then yes, they changed different aspects of it. So it's like, well, am I going to your contact app or am I going to the contact app I want, which is the Android contact app? Because I don't think I could figure out how to get rid of their version of, here, we're gonna make it better. So that was
it's interesting. Yeah, something I haven't talked about where like I have recently got a OnePlus Pad. Because actually this is the first time hearing about the brand too, when I was like shopping for a new tablet, and I was kind of curious about it because I was using the second generation iPad Air for a long time. And I like having an iPad just for doing like ebook reading, sometimes keeping a little bit of notes, but really just kind of just having for notes and some small stuff. And I was starting to use my iPad a lot more, especially for reading and doing some stuff. So but then with iOS, they don't like to keep their software compatible with previous versions of the hardware. Yeah. Which you will find though, it gets to be an older iOS device is very, very clunky in newer software. So the OS will keep updating itself, but then what you'll find with each update, it gets to be a little bit slower. because
they're demanding more on the hardware.
And it's just, and there's not a lot of customization, features to kind of customize the experience with Windows. If you want to cut down all the flashy performance stuff to try to make your as efficient as possible, you can do that. With iOS, you can't do that. I can't have a lot of control over that, right? They have some power saving features you can adjust to, but then it just makes it even slower. So I was starting to have a real frustrating time with it. And I was like, all right. So what I wanted though was I wanted a tablet that was kind of like iOS, but on Android. And essentially I was going on some YouTube videos and seeing some reviews. And essentially what OnePlus does, they pretty much clone the iPad, like the new version of iPad.
Really?
Like from almost close to the hardware. They have like here, I have it right here on the screen here.
This is going to work great for the podcast. Mark is putting a pen on a OnePlus tablet that
like the Magic. This is also what I wanted with the iPad too, because if I'm going to get a new version of the iPad, I want to have like their Magic Pencil.
Okay.
So I can do some sketching and some drawing.
Yeah.
And because I've done that
on my. Is it really magical?
Hey, Tim. Look at how it just snaps. Look at it snaps. It charges itself. It's super nice
with my Surface.
It's super nice. Well. Yes, and I did consider getting a Surface, but I was like,
that surprised me too, because how much you love the Surface Go laptops.
I know.
The Surface Pros are pretty much what you're looking for.
I like the small. It's just whatever. I like the iPad experience from like the hardware perspective. And and I was always fascinated with the Magic Pencil and because I would use like the nubs and the different types of pencils you could buy online with the software. It was always a little bit of a hacky experience. On an iPad Air, even though I did do it for some sketching and some drawing. But so I was like, so I saw that OnePlus, they had their own iPad and they pretty much cloned every feature. This looks just like a Magic Mouse. It's like almost exactly like it. And even their keyboard, their keyboard case is pretty close to looking like an older version of an iPad case keyboard. It charges itself and it's great performance wise. And even their OS, they try to make their OS as close to iOS as possible so that people, if they migrate or transition to a OnePlus Pad, then they have a close experience they have on iOS. And performance wise has actually been great. So I actually was.
But it's an Android tablet?
Yeah, it's an Android tablet. That's because I wanted that. I wanted to have an Android tablet, but to keep some of the nice iOS features. And so I love the fact they just cloned iOS and they cloned the best parts of iOS that I wanted to keep.
I'm sure Apple loves that fact too.
Yeah, it's great. And I was interested in their phones. That's why it's funny that you brought the fact you didn't like their phones. Because the one thing a feature they don't have, which I will miss if I go away from the Samsung, or I mean, I think I'm assuming Pixel has this, is the wireless charging.
Yeah, the Pixels have wireless charging. Yeah,
and so the OnePlus phones seems like they don't, which is kind of weird. So I don't.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
That would kind of bother me.
Yeah,
because I've gotten very used to when I'm at my desk,
you
just put
set
my phone
it
down. Yeah,
on the charger and charge.
Yeah, so I have to think about
that's nice. I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if the Pixel 3 didn't have it or if I just never set up the charger right. That was the one phone I had that was not a Google Experience device, was the Yoda phone, if you remember that one. It was a Russian build.
I've heard about it, but I don't think
Yeah, it had two screens.
Yoda phone.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It had two screens. One was a normal screen, on the front of the phone, and then the back of it was a e-ink display.
Okay, that's coming back. Yeah, I think I actually saw a model. Another company's trying to do something similar. Yeah,
yeah, because I thought that was great because you could like read on the backside like a Kindle concept. You could also just put your clock or whatever, and you're really easy to you flip your phone upside down and you have like an always on display. Doesn't work out well when you're at a meeting using your phone as a timer and other people are texting you snarky things about people in the meeting. That doesn't work out well. I'm not going to say that I know that from experience, but
you keep a timer in the meeting.
It was a yeah. No,
you time everybody in your meetings.
It was an in-person meeting.
You time saying you can only talk for 4 minutes.
I think it was one of those things. Yeah, no, it was like one of those activities where it's like, okay, spend 4 minutes doing this as a team.
Oh, okay.
So I had my phone as a timer, which meant I was looking at the front of the phone.
Oh, don't get me wrong. What I just said, I totally promote. Like if we could have a permanent timer in meetings.
Mark, you're out of time.
face-to-face meetings, and we timed everybody saying you cannot talk longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Before that.
Hey, have you ever just walked up to somebody, touched their forehead to see how much time was left in their talking, like a YouTube video? No. Just like you. But do you do it with videos?
That seems very inappropriate.
Do you do it with videos though?
Yes, of course.
You know what I mean? Like you put the cursor over, you're like, how much? Just click on this thing. How much longer?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you just walk up, put the forehead, and be like, I was just wondering when you could stop.
That seems so rude.
Oh man. Well. Where should we go to now, Mark? I had a thought.
You had a thought?
I had a thought. Well, you were talking about, so you're liking not having to pay the subsidy for your phone, right?
Yes, like and if I would, and yeah, like I said, it's a big commitment. Then if I would sign up for a new plan or new payment plan for a phone, because it's always, for me, it's always tempting. Oh, they're saying 0% interest for only what?
That's true.
12 to, depending upon your plan, 12 to 20 months or whatever. And it's like, you just have to think, it's only $20-$30 more on my bill. And that's fine for one phone. But once you have 5, I had actually had 3 at the highest point. I had 4 phones on different plans.
On the same,
payment plans. And then they slowly trickled down. And I've been holding off my kids from wanting to buy a new phone. Just trying to, let's just wait. Because I actually want to see how low my phone bill can get. And it's like half the price. And I'm like, I'm so happy with it right now. Even though it still feels like a lot of money I pay each month to AT&T, but
you pay it to AT&T.
I've been on it for. I know people.
So sorry.
I've been in my life. I've been on both Verizon and AT&T. I started off mostly, I think, on Verizon, and then I moved to AT&T. I've just been on for so long where I'm like
AT&T.
I don't know.
If I am not mistaken,
I haven't had too horrible of experience to want to move. So
they are. Well, but their customer
except for a lot of dead zones around Lehigh Valley, but
except for that, except for not working.
Yeah.
But their customer service is like known to be so bad. If I'm not mistaken, there was one survey, whatever you do with customer service, customers rated their phone service as better than their in-person service in the store.
That's true.
I don't know how terrible you have to be to get that.
I think that's actually I stopped going to an AT&T store because I even got them to admit they cannot do, like, if you go into a store to like make a change to your account, they could do some things, but other things they can't do. And they'll start to admit, it's like, just call the customer service. They have more features than we do in our management interfaces, and they'll be able to resolve your issue. I'm like, well, why am I here? I'm like, this is crazy.
What am I doing here then?
So like, I stopped going to HT stores and just calling them directly, just because it's a waste of time going to the stores unless you actually want to see devices. But if I want to see devices, I'll just go to Best Buy or someplace where I won't be hassled as much. Even though Best Buy also hassle you, but
poor Best Buy. Best Buy's like Best Buy's Amazon's showroom, right? Like,
one thing I would mention about Best Buy, because I was in there because I got the real expensive Surface dock, which is crazy. I don't even want to talk about how much it costs, but it does definitely.
Dock is ridiculous.
But it definitely solves some problems. I was having some video problems because I got one of those smaller HDMI or USB-C multi-connector that has like Ethernet, USB-C out, and it had like 3 or 4 connections. I had weird video issues with it, with like every 10 minutes the video would just go black and come back again. It's just because power wasn't fluctuating through it.
Yeah.
So I got the expensive dock. Everything's fixed now. Everything's smooth. Performance is so much better because it's powered and it has the right connectors. So I was going to Best Buy to get the expensive dock for my Windows Surface laptop. What I saw they're selling grills now in Best Buy, and I thought of you.
Grills?
They're selling smokers and grills.
Like digitally connected smokers.
Yes, they have like a nice like they have like a third of the grill is basically a digital interface. So like where like one of the ledges where we put like the meat and do like your prepping, they would have a big display and a screen to be like, so it was like the Traeger, the Traeger grills.
Yeah.
So they had like Traeger grills that were like smart grills.
Oh my!
I immediately thought of you. I was like, oh, this is crazy.
Oh my! I mean, yeah. I mean, I have a computer that helps with smoking, but it's like, it just blows a fan. It's like it's like an industrial concept, right? It's not like I don't have a screen out there being like, what you smoking, Tim? You want to watch YouTube while it smokes? I don't think so, but okay. It's like those refrigerators. They have refrigerators that are like a full-on OLED screen on the front of the fridge to tell you what's inside of it. It's like,
when we bought a new appliance, that was tempting, but I was like, it just feels like there's also stuff that could go wrong with that. And I was I don't know if I want a touch interface on the outside of my fridge. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like we have enough issues like with the touch interfaces, open up the fridge on newer fridges, then you have the nice kind of buttons and the alarms at the top of it. Even you have issues with those, like just not being set right. And
our fridge had a leak in it from the ice maker that took them forever to figure out how to solve. They finally did. But enough water came down it and we had like one drawer where you can change the temperature of that drawer, that I can't change the temperature of that drawer. Like it fried the panel.
Oh, jeez.
So,
man.
I mean, but it's still a fridge. It's like, it's not going to not be cold, but like you used to be like, I make it real cold for something, or, I don't know, whatever climate control they told you.
So what were you going to say? I cut you off because I got on the Best Buy route, but I was curious what you were going to say.
I mean, this is the way this show is meant to be. No, but you're talking about like not subsidy for your phone, like not paying the payment plan. I've been T-Mobile for years, right? And it used to be, I think all the carriers have got a little better at being like, no, you're paying for this phone. It used to be, they'd be like, you sign up for this contract for 2-year contract and you get a free phone. And it wasn't a free phone because the contract was $20 more than what it would be if you didn't have the phone. But they didn't make that clear, right? And then when you were done, they wouldn't change the price. So you would feel the need, well, I need to re-up for another 2 years because that's the only reason why this contract is valuable, because it comes with this free phone, right? And then you're like, well, my phone comes from my carrier. And then, well, how do you change your carrier? You don't change your carrier because you're tied to them. And that's where you get your phone instead of just shopping for your phone yourself, right? And I've been a T-Mobile customer for 15 years. I don't know. It's crazy. Forever, right? And T-Mobile's never really done that. I think they may have early on, but they stopped that early in the industry to just be like, nope, it's just a plan. If you want a payment plan, if you want to buy a phone on a payment plan, cool, you can do that with us. But we're not, and then we'll lock it to our network so you can't take it off. But they were very much in the unlocked phones, just this is just the plan. No kind of crazy shenanigans on how we make you think that it's valuable and it's not. But that did remind me of our closing conversation in the after show, because for those that watch it, it always sounds better. Always sounds better.
And usually the after show is better than the full show because we finally we're settled down.
Yeah, we're just like talking about everything. But yeah, if you watch the live stream from the last show, I think it was a good 20 minutes we talked after there, and we talked about what it's like to be a contractor
Mm.
and have to, what it's like to navigate
Deal with
healthcare.
insurance. Yeah.
And the reason why that came to mind is it's a similar concept, right? It's like, oh no, I can't leave this job. Why? Because my insurance depends on it. I
Yep.
can't leave this carrier. Why?
It's tough. It's scary.
Because that's where I get my phone from. And we
Yeah,
look at it and we call it a
okay.
benefit.
Not that bad, but yeah, that's
but it's like that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's the same concept. It's like, let's give you something else that you think comes from us,
Mhm.
and it ties you to us. And like in
Yeah, my thing's more of a hassle. Like, when it comes to phone stuff, it's more of a hassle.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, especially once the phone's paid off, we could switch. And even the other carriers like do offer the deals like, oh, if you switch, if you have 5 lines, we'll give you a phone for each line or something like that. I don't know, some craziness or something like that. But I'm like, just the hassle of having to do that, move all your lines over and just do that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, similar in the, you're looking for a new job and it's like, well, how am I going to, what's the hassle with change? We're going to change healthcare. And then now everything's going to seem different. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a different plan. Things are going to work differently. And just tying those two things together. I mean, on one side, it's like, yeah, that's great. It's a benefit. But on the other side, it's kind of like a thing that really
ties
you
in, yeah.
you to your company.
Well, especially with companies, which, I alluded to the fact of like, the teachers at my college don't get paid that much, or like the ceiling.
The ceiling is lower.
Unless you've worked there for like 50 years and like you built in the percentages of accumulated over time where you can actually make good money. And there are some teachers that are like that. They're just going to retire when they're like 70 years old because they're making really good money in retirement. But when they hire new faculty, they have pretty much a limit that they can offer to new faculty. And then the percentage raises each year are fixed because it's
Right.
a union thing.
Yeah.
And then each level that you can go up, if you go from like assistant to associate to full professor, there's certain percentages. There's not like you can't renegotiate your salary, so everything's fixed, right? So you're kind of in a fixed system. So, but the benefits, what they do is they try to give as much from a benefit perspective as possible from like health, dental, vision, because people talk about that. Like when it comes when we sit in the union meetings or in the faculty meetings, because every couple of years the benefits have to get rolled over and have to get renegotiated. And people always talk about how like, yes, it's the benefits is the key thing that keeps everybody, well, not keeps everybody there, but like keeps everybody content.
Right. That's why you don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And even when you're looking to leave, you're like, well, what's the next company going to give me for benefits? And it's like, that to me seems weird, because what does that have to do? What does one necessarily have to do with the other than we've put them together? And I'm not sure that's necessarily helpful all the time. Because, well, what you're saying as a contractor, then you got to go in the marketplace yourself. And you got to figure out how to do that. And we do it a little different and kind of do a health cost sharing plan. I forget what the official term is for where this falls in healthcare. But in the end, that just means we're paying cash, or private pay. It's not actually cash, because whatever. And I was surprised. I saw the bill for my hospital stay over one night.
Yeah.
And it was pretty high.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I'll give you a guess. What do you think it is when it's reduced? Because it was about $37,000.
Well, it should be at least 50% off the top.
So
and then you could probably negotiate down to maybe 30% of 40%. I think what lowest I've heard, you could probably negotiate down to like between 30 to 40% of that original bill that was usually paid by insurance.
Okay.
If you're good, or if you can really sound desperate.
So I didn't do anything other than say, hey, I'm cash pay. Or private pay, self-pay. That's the thing. And it went from 37 and some change to 7.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yep.
So just that difference there, that should indicate that there is probably something wrong with the way that we're doing this concept.
Because don't get me wrong, if you $7,000 could be definitely a lot to hit somebody with, and especially if they don't have a lot of
I'm not going to pay that.
Okay. Oh, because it goes in your co-op thing. You could probably
it's a co-op. So I pretty much do have a fixed cost every month, and I'm not gonna be hit with that. Because you're right, it still is a significant thing.
Now, when you said you're just self-pay or cash pay, did you? But you'd have to disclose that you do have this side co-op program that you.
The co-ops are self-pay. Like it is.
That's what's designated. So like hospitals can't use that as like a
Nope.
negotiation tactic. Like, okay.
No, that's from a medical regulatory. I don't know, however it works. That is understood to be self-pay, because really, what is people are just going to send me checks, to help cover the cost. But that was ridiculous. That like, here's the official bill, and I do nothing other than saying, I do nothing other than say, hey, I'm self-pay, and it's like, oh, well, here you go. And I'm sure if there was more, I could, they'd put me on a payment plan or something like that if it was something that was needed. But that's just blows.
No,
my
I totally
mind.
agree. It's kind of, the system is crazy how, like, just with the insurance companies, how everything's kind of, I don't know the right way to describe it, because I usually try to not think about it, because it is a very dark place to think about how everything's controlled by basically health insurance, because they're basically the drivers of the cost, in a sense, because they can control how much they can get from the hospitals and doctors and everything like that. So
yeah.
And then you have the government on top of that.
So many different layers, and we look at now, we're like, well, how would you survive without that? Well, maybe the problem isn't that we need another layer of this or another layer of that. Maybe we just need to go back to the fact.
The only thing that's scary too, I agree. Like, you could probably manage, like, say, if you had to get to the hospital, or if you have a child or something like that, you can work out the cost to be somewhat manageable. Getting into like a terminal illness situation, because like, I know, like your father dealt with something. My father died of cancer, and he wasn't on therapy, like chemotherapy, for that long, but my wife's mother went through the same thing. So she, she was definitely older. She was on the Medicare, because she was old enough for that. And my dad at the time, actually, I don't think he was before 60 when he was dealing with that. But so once you have like a terminal illness, we have to go back to the hospital on a regular basis and have this expensive therapy to be done. That's also why I'm, like we talked about in the beginning, exercising, right? That's why I'm my mind now thinking it's like, I need to stay healthy as I age, because I do not want to even be faced with those questions because of the cost and everything like that. I'm like, scary.
And a friend of mine went through a really significant medical event, and he's also part of a sharing co-op thing. I forget what the bill was, but the bill was, it was ridiculous. Hundreds of thousands, if not more than that. I forget what it was. And they just slowly, paying it off as every month. People contribute basically their monthly, their monthly share to him to take care of it. So it's
well, that is for
the whole thing to me seems like we've missed a couple things along this we missed a couple of exits along this highway. We're pretty far down a place where
well, it's interesting too, thinking about the future, and as us as being two old guys, especially as
the new name of the podcast, because
two old developers. I think
basically we
maybe
talked about go-to.
Okay,
we talked about go-to and then being old. Yeah,
we could actually probably get more listeners if we say the Two Old Guys podcast. We could probably the two old developers podcast or something like that. Probably get more listeners, I think.
I just want to make sure it's two old developers,
because we would have a bunch of old people
to develop
that would relate to us, and they would want to, they could be our friends. Okay. And then we have young people who just want to listen and laugh at us.
Okay. I think this works.
No, I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Something about being old. I don't know.
No, I was thinking about how I wonder if this in the future if this is going to change, because it is interesting to see how, the younger generation, how, like, they're staying away from debt as much as, they're trying to, in a sense, because they see how people got into debt and overcommitted. And also they understand too how companies can just lay people off or fire people on the whim. And they're seeing that even before they get into the workplace. So I'd be curious to see how it evolves, how maybe they're going to not require, like, maybe they're going to find other ways around the whole wanting benefits, and using that as a good need to kind of go from one job to the next.
Because like when you think, that's kind of what we were talking about at the end of the show last week is the benefits say to the company, hey, this is sticky and it makes my employee afraid to leave me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't put any fear in the side of the employer to let you go. And it's not exactly a great way to look at it. True. So this is interesting too. Like right before the bumper music started, my entire Linux box just went blank because I hit an HDMI cable with my foot. So I don't know when this thing's going to end. We're doing this all by hearing now, right? Like it's just.
Well, I can hear you. Can you see me?
I can see.
I can hear and see you.
It came back. It looks like, oh, we got 40. I thought we were close to that. We got 44 seconds left.
Don't run the video through Linux, man.
I'm not running the video through Linux. I'm just playing the audio on the Linux box. But I'm trying to think. Well, I don't know what else. I'll be flying out in a couple weeks to go keynote Longhorn. I don't know. You going to be on any podcasts, Mark?
I may have to start promoting myself, so I may have to get on some podcasts there.
I would highly recommend. I would highly recommend that. Find a podcast other than this one.
Oh, after listening to the PHP Developer Podcast, I may be submitting a talk to a future conference.
Really? Well, stay tuned for that, folks. All right, we're out. What conference?
No, I'm going to be a surprise. No, I'm going to tell you after I've actually submitted it, and then we're going to talk about it in the podcast.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you the whole thing about the proposal and about the talk, and we'll see if we can actually pick up any traction around it. So
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. All right. So when are you taking off to Texas? When is that? That's in November, right?
Closer than I thought. I gotta start polishing up that keynote again. They just
got to freshen up. Do you think you're going to have any return listeners that saw you at
not so much
Tech?
that, but like there were things I did at Tech that were very much tech. Like I was talking about tech because it was a conference. So there's just a couple things I got to run through it again a couple times. And this is where
I think they're going to. But they're offering. I know they're going to stream the keynotes.
I don't know if they're going to stream the keynotes for free.
They do the stream keynote, the virtual. I saw that, but they don't. I think I like the fact they at least tried to stream you, the keynote speakers for the PHP Tech. So I at least could. I saw like half of your presentation.
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing that. I can ask him. Because I think that's a good way to do it too, because that kind of builds interest.
It introduces the conference, so if people
you may be able to convince someone to get a streaming ticket from it.
Mm-hmm. You know, at least like the first day, the first keynotes. I think that would be just
Because then if you like the content, you're like, oh, well, maybe I will buy the streaming ticket and so I can continue listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, what was I going to say?
Well, as long as it works on time, because I don't think PHP Tech, they did a good job. Because like I said, it wasn't online. I know they tried. It was the first time doing it. But the first 10, 15 minutes, it was like you were just looking at their PHP Tech logo and just saying, oh, we're streaming. Just be patient or something like that. And then it was, had to keep refreshing the page. And eventually I think I went off, did something else and came back. And then, oh, look, Tim's talking.
There you go. Now you like just listening to this podcast again to hear yourself. This is a situation where I will pull up the video from that keynote and I will listen to it again as I go through my notes to get like kind of back in the zone, and I'll refine it.
Yeah, I would do that a lot when I was the first few years of when I was recording myself in class too. I don't do that anymore, but I would do that when I'd watch myself and just to kind of see where I would stumble or not be clear or just be rambling. And to try to fix those issues. Yeah. I finally feel like I've gotten close to fixing those issues, but not now. I need to leave school once I, felt like I've conquered that. Got to the top.
Got to the top. Yeah.
I need to leave.
That's when you need to exit.
Yeah.
I should have the other show ready to go soon because I just gave it to ChatGPT to write something.
All right. Well, let me know. Yeah, I'll be around on my desk today, so I'll push it when.
It wrote it okay. It wasn't the best. Let me see. Can I pull it up? Where'd it go? I thought I had it right here. No, that's not that.
I'm going to be doing some tests. I'm going to throw in our podcast to the Amazon, the AWS Transcribe. I want to see. Well, we can do the comparison. AWS well, you're just doing. You're using a transcribe service and then you're loading into ChatGPT, right? Which transcribe service are you using?
Yeah, I'm using Podium, which is
Podium. That's right. You talked about that.
It does do transcription, and it gives you a transcription of the show. But what it also does is show notes, summary, all that kind of stuff.
I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious to compare. Because who knows? Podium's probably using AWS Transcribe.
Who knows? Yeah.
So it might not be any different. But I'm going to do a test of just throwing the audio, a file in there and see what comes back, and then see if you can do what you're doing then with ChatGPT. See. I don't know if you could do it to pull out the chapters, but with the
well, ChatGPT is not pulling out the chapters. my thing is
you're using ChatGPT to rewrite the chapters.
Right. Because
Yeah.
Podium goes through, and this is what Podium
It does pull out the chapters.
Yeah,
Okay.
it pulls out chapters, and its summary is very dry. Like, are you ready to dive into behind-the-scenes production of a podcast? Take a journey through the agonizing world of kidney stones and get a taste of the future with cloud technology certifications. Brace yourselves, that's exactly what we're doing in our latest chat. We go down the rabbit hole of live stream versus podcast audio quality, embrace the magic of AI to spruce up our show notes, and share the comic miseries of those unpredictable technical hiccups we occasionally stumble upon.
I love
Imagine having a stone lodged into your kidney. Painful, isn't it? We'll take it up a notch higher by not just discussing the tormenting pain, but also the cutting-edge technology used to pulverize these stones. I mean, this is like, you can't take our content and write a summary like it's NPR. Sorry. So
you're not, so from Podium, you're not getting the full transcription, but they're using the transcription.
I am getting full transcriptions as well.
And then you're feeding into Podium. Okay. So Podium does give you both.
Podium does everything. Podium gives you transcriptions. Let me pull up the zip file that they give me. Where's that zip file? Over here. They give me show notes, basically a transcript in 3 different formats, depending if you want time code and all that. Show notes, and then highlights where they highlight sections, and then they give you the transcript for that section. Speaker 1, speaker 2, mental health podcast promotion. So that was one from last week. PHP development and automation. Now it's PHP, and it's 55 seconds. You and me talking. Browser-based CAD applications and their potential. That's me talking about. I think
CAD. I thought you said cat. Yeah.
No, CAD. That was me talking about how Fusion's in. Fusion's in the. But anyway, I take those kind of dry show notes from Podium, give them to ChatGPT, and it says, instead of that whole imagine having finally we dive into PHP's power for memory management and tease you with conspiracy theory about the internet providers and PHP. Expect lots of laughs and some serious tech talk. At least Podium's starting to lighten up a little bit with ours, with the show notes.
Yeah.
But I pass it to ChatGPT, where I've given it examples of my show notes in the past, and it then reduces it to from kidney stones to podcast tones. We're diving deep. Mark's debating live stream versus podcast quality, while Tim's secretly hoping AI can take over the show notes
to base the revision off of previous text that you gave. That's something that's super smart that ChatGPT can do. Analyze the structure of a previous and then try to make the next.
And I keep giving it what I do. Like, I'll read this and I'll then take its version, which is a little longer than I want it to be, and I'll shorten it up, and then I'll tell it that that's what I did, and it'll hopefully start learning from it, right? So I'm basically training it in this thread to take Podium's rather dry summaries and long summaries and give me just that quick paragraph. Ever wondered about kidney stone zapping tech? We're weirdly fascinated too. We also dish on cloud platform certifications and spill some beans about PHP's memory magic. Oh, we've got some conspiracy theories brewing about internet providers. 4 weeks without our banter? Trust us, this one's a roller coaster. Earbuds in.
Earbuds in. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, that's what it says. I'm like, that's not going on there.
I love that. Strap your earbuds in. It's a roller coaster.
Yep. Get yourself one of those headbands, and then just put it a little low so it keeps them in, and you'll be fine to go. All right.
I'm
going to end the stream.
Okay.
And then what should